And yeah, we'll just go on straight up with the questions here. So yeah, just introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
Hi. My name is Sophie. I produce music as Puke Girl, formerly RVFS, but Puke Girl these days. I've been doing so for about 10, 12 years at this point, I think.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah. So all right. So this is the infamous question. The infamous question that gets everyone debating. What is breakcore? What is it? I think it is.
um, I've. Hmm, it's sort of, I guess, it depends. I would say it's sort of halfway between Gabba and jungle. I would say is the sort of I would broadly define it. I think if it has elements of both of those things, I would say that constitutes breakcore.
All right.
I
So like
think
elements of Gabber and Jungle. Do you think that there's like do you think there's like a collectively like unconsciously agreed definition on it in the community?
I think it's kind of one of those things where you know it when you hear it. If that makes
Just have
sense.
to know.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Keep going. Sorry.
some people will apply the term breakcore to something that really is sort of just drum and bass.
Yeah.
Some people do that with something that really could just be described as speedcore. Like it's hard to say. I think it's more of a community thing than a specific sound these days.
So you would say yeah that breakcore is like it's defined maybe more so as like a culture
Yeah,
of
yeah,
music.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. What do you and if it's this culture, what do you think it's about? Like, what is breakcore? What is the culture about? What is its purpose?
Um, Copyright infringement. um, I don't know. I think it's sort of anarchist in the way it's made. I would say almost. It's very, you know, like it's sort of freedom to use whatever sounds you want. I guess what samples you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like its emphasis on plunderphonics is pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Would you say that the there's like a punk ethos or like a punk
Yes.
culture that's
Yeah.
yeah and like okay and
I
it's
think
and
that's what sort of. I think that's what sort of makes something breakcore. I guess it's just taking you can draw sounds from literally anywhere, like any sound you hear that you like.
okay because there
And
was
I think
yeah oh yeah keep going sorry
I was going to say I think in a lot of genres you don't really get that so much. It's very that there are limits on these sounds are X genre, and then these sounds make it something else. I don't think you have that so much in breakcore.
okay all right yeah because there was like a giant book about this written by Andrew Wellen and it was like plunderphonics is super important. It's like almost the entire point is like being rebellious and doing
Hmm.
that. Do you think that the plunderphonics kind of helps develop artists that aren't reliant on like buying things? Because that's like one of the main things is like you take your samples from Soulseek or something. There's like a
I
big
think
P2P culture apparently.
I think so. Yeah, I think sort of like at least nowadays, now that it's all digital sampling, it's not analog sampling. It's very, but like pretty much anyone can start doing it.
Hmm.
It's not you don't there's no barrier of entry necessarily.
All right. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna also dive straight into it. I don't have a specific album that like that I've asked inspiration for you. I was just gonna ask, how did you get into the anime core stuff, basically?
Uh, hmm. I liked anime first before I knew anything about like hardcore or anything like that. I I well, I mean I've been into anime since I was a kid, like
Yeah.
when I was like 8 or 9. So I think it was just when I got into like hardcore, well, into like speedcore first.
Mm-hmm.
I It just seemed like a natural sort of amalgamation of two things that I really like. The first time that when I started making like sort of like my really early like music experiments that I would do in like Audacity, when I would try to make speedcore, I would involve anime samples in that, and I thought that it was something that I'd invented. Like no one else had ever done it before.
Nice. All right. So I mean, so do you think that like when most people are getting into the genre, they're coming in with like like influences already built in, as opposed to like the bottom way up, or like it's the
Uh,
other way around?
I think that's natural to do. It's the
Actual.
same with any genre. It's the same with if you're writing music or just making music, you're going to, because it doesn't necessarily have to be about something, but you're going to draw influence from things that you like or things that you're interested in, like things that you want to say. You can't really avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What do you think of this current iteration of modern breakcore, both as it stands now, like actual breakcore, and what people misunderstand as breakcore?
Like the sort of like depressive like drum and bass kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it gets really unfairly maligned. I think a lot of it's actually really good. I'm I mean, like obviously a lot of it is very sort of paint by numbers, but a lot of it isn't. I think I don't think it's fair to not give it like it seems that a lot of people don't give that kind of sound a chance. They just decide that they don't like it based on I guess optics. In terms of in terms of more like mashcore, um, and like what was the word for it? Just a way more like sample heavy, like abrasive kind of, close to the kind of thing that I try to make. I think there's never been a better time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I get.
I
Yeah.
think especially with the sort of Japanese scene for that, it's unbelievable right now.
All right. All right. So like following on top of that, since there's like this big pushback against this alternative sound that's like been popping up recently, do you think that gatekeeping is good? Do you think it belongs in breakcore?
Not, no, I've never seen much value in that. I always see I always see it if somebody's new to the genre. I always see that as an opportunity to introduce them to music that, well, at least that I think is sort of better. And then if it turns out they don't like it, then they don't like it. They don't have to listen to it. But I don't see why. I don't see what the value is in trying to stop people liking your thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make sense that you want your thing to be sort of like more widely appreciated?
Yeah. Yeah. There's to play devil's advocate here, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. And once again, referring back to Andrew Welland's book, I forgot who he interviewed. I don't know if it was LFO Demon. I don't know if I'm quoting him incorrectly, but basically their stance was that breakcore has to be kept sort of underground in order to protect the technical prowess of the genre, the creativity and the culture, and to not over popularize it. What do you think of that? Is that just
I
completely wrong?
think there. I don't think breakcore will ever be completely mainstream. I don't think there's any risk of that. It's by design. I don't think that will ever happen. I think the more sort of technically minded, like the more aggressive, like purely sample driven, like mashcore kind of stuff, I think will always be niche just by virtue of how it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's too inaccessible. It's like worrying that harsh noise is going to become too popular. It's not going to happen
Yeah.
because it's sort of made for a very specific type of person with a very specific taste, I think.
Going just like riffing off that, why do you think that what do you think, or just like why do people like to listen to it? It's very abrasive, it's very sample heavy, it just sounds crazy. It's like, I mean, in the words of Alec Empire, whatever, just make it fast. Why do you think people enjoy breakcore so much?
I think that's the appeal. It's for the same reason that people enjoy, like grindcore, like hardcore punk, things of that nature. I think it's just so some people are driven toward extremes. That was how I found out about like speedcore and like extra tone, and then eventually from that I got really into breakcore. It's because as a kid I was fascinated by just like how much something can be. Like, so I was looking for an extreme in music. Like, what's the heaviest it can be, the fastest it can be, the most amount of things that can be going on. And I think you have to have that kind. I think if you have that kind of interest, then I think it makes a lot of sense to be really into like mashcore.
So it's like so it's like you'd say it's like for some people it's like a basic natural instinct to like pursue the extreme.
Yeah, sort of kind of like an auditory thrill seeking sort of thing.
Okay. Um does does breakcore change? If so, is this change good or bad? And then I'd like to tack on an accessory question on top of that. Is like there's like an isogloss within breakcore. Some people like to say there's like a continuum. There's like gray areas. At what point do you think something stops being breakcore, and at what point it starts being something else? That may be a lot of questions, so I can just tackle one by
Uh,
one.
I think. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, well, it's breakcore. It has to have a break, and it has to be hardcore in some way. So you take out either of those things, you don't have breakcore anymore. There has to be a drum break, and it has to be fast. And I would say those two basic elements, I think you can call anything breakcore. I think. What do you mean? What do you mean by does breakcore change? Like over time? Or?
Yeah, so like the sound changes. Like we didn't really see IDM and like drill and bass influences come in until Aphex Twin and Square Pusher started messing with drill and bass, and then like Venetian snares was like a good contemporary example of that. And then now the IDM sounds, it's kind of like lessened, and there's more plunderphonics now, at least what I've noticed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if your thoughts on this change, like on breakchords, like on like your thoughts on it, basically.
I think in so I think well the thing with IDM is that it's all for the most part it's being made with hardware, being messed around with hardware synths, which is an incredibly high barrier of entry because you have to both know how to use them and have the money to afford them. Whereas I think in the digital age, it's more. I don't think it's necessarily that those things have gone away. I think that the definition of breakcore has just widened. It includes more sounds now, and it's that certain sounds will become more popular with time, and certain sounds will sort of fall out of favor. But I don't think it's like an evolving thing. I don't think any of these sounds have gone away. And I don't think that's a bad thing, really. There's more, it gives you more. It gives you more of a choice,
Okay, so like
Does that make
breakchords, like
sense?
yeah, yeah. So like instead of evolving and changing over time in its own right, it gradually actually like starts to encompass more things. You'd say.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't think that's a bad thing because then you'll get fusion. You'll get people who fuse those different styles in
Yeah.
interesting ways.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what arguably say can create variety in the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. On to more specific questions. Drawing back to when you're talking about that anime depressive drone bassish stuff and people over hating it for optics. Why do you think people? Why do you think people are so angry in general at anime aesthetics and breakcore? There was a Dormouse tweet. I don't know if this was a joke. He said it's not breakcore. It's poorly programmed. Hashtag anime trash. There's also this image of I'm sure you've seen it of Lane, Serial Experiments Lane, floating around with a giant X on her head that says "Keep anime out of breakcore." I've been seeing it a few shows actually printed.
I have
And,
I have the cassette of that album behind me.
That's cool.
Well, what I will say is that I think when DJ Sammy, rest in peace, when he made that image, he was joking.
Yeah, I've heard that.
He was just trying to annoy people. I think the reason, as far as I can tell, when people don't like the sort of anime and breakcore thing, it's just because they don't like anime. Like anime is a very, love it or hate it kind of thing. And I think it's probably quite frustrating to have this sort of other thing that you might not necessarily be a fan of kind of shoved down your throat because you like a different thing. And I think that's all it is.
Okay. Yeah. So like,
People are just a bit. I also think maybe it's just becoming a bit played out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see so much of it, and if you're someone who's not into anime, you're sort of forced to engage with it to an extent if you want to be really into the genre.
All right. So you'd say it's just people not really being open-minded to the thought, generally.
Well, visually, yes, I can see how it would be annoying because there's a lot of anime sound, like it leaks into the sound as well, especially in the Japanese scene. You don't want to hear. I've heard a lot of people say like, I like how this sounds, but I don't like the sort of anime dialogue. I like the anime voices that are present in it.
Yeah, the same.
Which it makes sense. I can't imagine that because obviously I got into anime first, and then I found out about breakcore. So that was kind of like a dream come true for me. It's like, oh, this is just two things that I really like, sort of mashed together.
Yeah. So do you think that I'm trying to phrase this correctly. Since like breakcore is all about honestly not only breaks but like the hardcore ethos and like also whatever people want to put in their influences in, whether it be anime, whether it be metal. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna skip that question. I can't phrase it. Do you think that what is like the classical way that people implement anime into breakcore? Like how do people usually go about that?
Well, like visually or like sonically.
Yeah, let's do just like both. You can do both, I guess.
I think. Well, that starts as far as I can tell in the 90s in Japan with like the whole nerdcore techno scene. I don't know if you know about that, but that was that was a similar kind of thing. It was people just making sort of quirky electronic music about their interest. So obviously, like anime was and like video games very heavily infused into that. And I think the whole I don't like the word, but like the quote unquote lollicore thing is kind of just a Western continuation of that. Which, I mean, when people started doing that, it was a joke. That was a complete shitpost.
Yeah.
And that goes as far back as like 2004. It's not a recent thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten what I was going to say.
No, you're all good. You're all good. I mean, it's supposed to be pretty lax. I can, whatever. So
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. I already heard your thoughts on lollycore. I think Gorshit also has a similar sentiment. He actually hates the term.
He used to, yeah, I think he used to refer to his music as that, but way back when like the whole Lollicore thing was kind of a joke, and people were just using it to refer to low effort
Yeah,
like internet music.
it's a little tongue in
I,
cheek.
yeah, I've always been of the opinion of like I don't call my music that, but it's I obviously it uses a lot of high pitched anime samples. It fits the bill. So if somebody else wants to call it that, I don't mind. But I don't use it. I don't use the term to refer to my stuff.
Why do you think the culture has like kind of like changed around the years in order for people to see? Because even the word lolly has kind of like changed course over the internet over the years, and it's kind of seen in a much more negative light nowadays.
Yeah.
I guess that you could say that that would contribute to why people are don't really want to label their music that.
Well, that the term lollicore comes from like image board culture,
Yeah.
and around in the mid 2000s, it was never really supposed to be something that many people I think knew about. It was one of those things, like it was sort of an in joke for like maybe a couple of hundred people in this culture of 4chan where everyone's just kind of a bit edgy.
Yeah.
And I think that's all that's happened there is that it's massively escaped containment, and people are now aware of it who I think wouldn't have been okay with it if they'd known what it was back then. It was very deliberately abrasive.
Okay.
And
So yeah.
I think that's all it is. It's just that breakcore and in general has become sort of way more popular than it was not supposed to, but I guess designed to.
Hmm. So like keeping that in mind, do you think over time some aspects of breakcore and that culture will like phase out almost? Because yeah, I mean like yeah, some of it, the sound and the original culture behind it was to be punk, it was to be abrasive, so it's not exactly commercial friendly. And despite that, the genre is getting popular. So do you think any elements of it has been lost over time?
I think not really, because I think if you, I think the artists that are more popular, the most popular like breakcore artists that people know are definitely the ones who aren't doing this sort of deliberately abrasive, like edgy behavior so much. But there is still sort of an underground current of people still very much doing that, like being abrasive on purpose and making it so that their music only appeals to a small amount of people by design. I don't think that will ever be lost,
Okay.
because you will get people sort of reacting against that. I think you get people who make their music like challenging as a sort of reaction to the not commercialization. That's kind of a strong word, but like the rise in popularity of breakcore. I don't think anything will like I said. I don't think anything will be lost. I think it will just be pushed underground. I think.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Just following your previous point, the culture expands as opposed to evolving. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so more, it's more about you. I think there's already been a few instances where we've kind of addressed some things. Um, but when you're making your music, what are you trying to accomplish when you make a track? What do you think what are you trying to do basically?
It's mostly it's mostly just catharsis. I try and make it's sort of the audio equivalent of like screaming into a pillow.
Mm.
I have I deal with a lot of mental illness, and my sort of outlet for that is just to make music as sort of fast and loud as I can. But it's also I also like it to be funny. I'd like it if like so it's quite a confusing sort of juxtaposition. I'm very much making this in the mindset of like I hope this makes people laugh, but also I hope I'm putting across that like this is me, this is an outlet, Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get that. Do you this is I didn't write this question down, but I also asked this to Dave too, and he wanted like to do like research on this, but there's like not enough for it. There's like this weird or there's this kind of like this conception that breakcore has been designed for people that have like ADHD, ADD, or like autism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think this? Do you think there's any light to this stigma? Is there any truth to this stigma?
Um, I will say, I myself have autism, and most of the breakcore producers, I think, not all, I would say 90% of the breakcore producers that I know or have spoken to have autism or ADHD.
Okay. Yeah.
So, anecdotally, I can say that's definitely the case, and I think with something that's so overstimulating by design, I think people with those conditions will be drawn to it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think
Would you say the same thing for like the audience?
um I would say so. Not that everyone who listens to breakcore is autistic or anything,
Yeah.
but I think that autistic people will be more inclined to enjoy it.
Okay. This. There's other questions. I mean, you've already kind of already answered some of these. Getting into the production, the appeal of anime sampling. Oh yeah. Who do you think your music is for? Let's end off on that one.
Autistic people. It's I've always said, it sounds a bit pretentious, but I've always said I just kind of make it for myself. It's just me mashing together elements of things that I like. But I think it's I guess it's for people who are in sort of similar positions to me. I guess people like sort of unusual, outcast kind of people. I would say.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna ask something. I literally forgot. Um. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here. So like basically, what you're saying is, would you say that breakcore is like one of the ultimate forms of self expression in music?
I Yeah, I would say it definitely has the potential to be.
Okay.
Because you can take any sound and incorporate it into a breakcore track. Literally any sound, as long as you can rip that sound and put it in
Yeah.
your music software, you can use it. So I think absolutely.